Cowboys OTAs coming at you this week, and probably question number one on everyone's mind in Big D is, will Micah Parsons show up or will he be a no-show? Of course, we know he's trying to get shown the money and get a new contract situation, as that whole scenario has pushed on as we are quickly approaching June. That is the defensive side of things for maybe question number one that needs an answer. But over on the other side, the way the offseason has played out for them is, of course, they have Dak Prescott dealing with his injury, tearing that hamstring and having surgery to repair. A team that's coming off of going 7-10. Of course, as a new head coach now, brought in George Pickens, drafted Tyler Booker to help shore up that offensive line with that number 12 overall pick. That sets the scene for the situation of getting ready for Frisco and OTAs. And we cannot talk Cowboys, we can't talk about Frisco, we can't talk about the Star without bringing in our very own Garrett Podell, who will be there at Cowboys OTAs. And Garrett, let's start with Micah Parsons, that leading question that we began this segment with. What's the situation in the field with him? Will he show up? Will he not? How are things playing?
Hey, Zach, great to see you. I would say things are playing out amicably. I mean, Micah Parsons in the past has taken this point in the offseason program to, quote, do his own thing and really only show up for mandatory minicamp. But head coach Brian Schottenheimer has kind of bridged that gap and built a nice relationship with Parsons. He attended Parsons' bowling philanthropy event this offseason. And because of that, Parsons said just before the start of the NFL draft in April that meant a lot to him. And Schottenheimer's relationship building efforts with him will mean that he will show up to parts of organized team activities here that are going on right now. Schottenheimer told us that Parsons was at the first OTA practice on Monday, May 19th, and the two had lunch. Now, when I was out there for the first media viewing of OTAs on Tuesday the 20th, Parsons was nowhere to be seen, and Schottenheimer said OTAs are voluntary, so veterans may or may not be in and out of the building. But so Micah, he'll pop in there. He won't. As far as the contract, he also said at the end of April, Parsons, that after seeing new deals for guys like Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter, guys who are older than him, he's changed his tune on, he feels it's about respect. So he wants to be making at least $40 million per year. That's Myles Garrett's chart-topping figures for edge rusher, and be right up there as one of the highest paid defensive players because of respect, not money. And now in terms of timing for the deal, like you mentioned, the Cowboys typically operate on deadlines for these things. So Micah has said he wants to get it done quickly. He doesn't want to miss or hold out of training camp. So my guess is if we're going to see any movement on this contract, it'll be in July, just around the start of training camp, if there is anything, because last year they went through this with CeeDee Lamb. They let him hold out. And CeeDee said some of the early season struggles he and Dak Prescott had connecting were because they didn't have these reps banked in OTAs and training camp. And when I spoke to Dak Prescott after the second OTA practice, he said having CeeDee out here, it's night and day. So it's a big deal for the Cowboys to have their stars around in training camp. So clock's ticking for July in terms of when that Parsons deal could get done.
Yeah, it can be about respect, but ultimately you show that respect by paying the money. So they certainly go hand in hand. Let's maybe look leg at leg and talk about Dak Prescott here. Maybe not a good pun there, but either way, we'll roll with it. How is he standing right now, and do you think he will get out there for OTAs and maybe show some action, or is he still going to rehab the injury?
Dak Prescott is all go for OTAs minus the contact portion. So I saw him. You can see the footage there. He's looking good, rolling left, rolling right. He had the hamstring surgery in mid-November, and I spoke to kind of an independent physical therapist just to get his idea on his recovery. He said, yeah, Prescott is right on track for somebody 7-8 months removed from the procedure, and Dak said he's cleared for everything except contact. And he took most of the reps with the first team on Tuesday at the first media viewing of OTAs, their second practice, and he looked good, rolling left, rolling right, smooth, hitting guys down the sideline. So as far as where he's at in the offseason, he's right on track to play week 1 in Philadelphia on Thursday, September 4th. Not allowed to get hit for now, but no quarterbacks get hit this time of year. So he's progressing very nicely for Dallas, and they're all excited about that. Schottenheimer said Dak looks great.
So certainly good news for the Cowboys there, because that means if Dak is able to play and he's healthy, you don't need to see too much from Joe Milton. But still, him now being the backup, where does the team feel about his standing with the team and how comfortable they are with him?
It's a good question, Zach, because he's someone who's viewed as having a really high ceiling, cannon for an arm. We saw in his start in Week 18 against the Buffalo Bills when he finally got to play in place of Drake May. He could roll out and throw it with high velocity deep downfield. And that's what I've seen from him in OTAs. Some awesome deep balls. Kind of could use a little more polishing on some of the finer anticipation and field vision stuff. He did have an interception in which he kind of stared over the middle, and rookie 5th-round pick Shamar James, a linebacker, picked him off. But Schottenheimer said he's really excited about Milton. He loves his work ethic. I know this may sound cliche, but one of the first guys in the building, one of the last guys to leave. And they really like his ceiling and potential, and they view him as somebody who they're excited to get their hands on and develop. He's only in year 2 of his rookie deal, so they've got some time with him under contract and could provide a much higher ceiling should Dak Prescott get hurt again. They had Cooper Rush for the vast majority of Dak Prescott's career, and he was accurate but didn't exactly scare anybody deep. Joe Milton maybe needs a little more refinement, but he definitely can scare you deep.
Yeah, so if Milton is not working with the ones, he may not get as many opportunities to work with George Pickens, now coming over to Dallas. But of course, Pickens now there with the team. How is he fitting in so far?
He's fitting in incredibly well. I think one of the biggest things that people have questions about is his maturity. Mike Tomlin challenged him after a late win against the Cincinnati Bengals, saying he needed to grow up after Pickens had 2 personal fouls called against him in that game. And he's behaved like a grown-up, certainly so far here with the Cowboys. Brian Schottenheimer said one of the biggest things he's really liked about George Pickens is the way he is in the meeting room, taking a lot of notes, asking plenty of questions, acting like a veteran there as he learns Dallas's offense. So that's been great. And talking to both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb about him, and they rave about him. Dak said it's a great thing to have another weapon like George, and that there might be games during the upcoming season where maybe it's George's day, maybe it's CeeDee's day, but both those guys are on board with that because they're here and want to win. And CeeDee Lamb said he kind of likened it to when he first joined the Cowboys and he was picking the brain of Amari Cooper over and over again as a rookie and in his first 2 years in the NFL. And he said Pickens has been doing that, and he's happy to give Pickens everything that he knows. They actually met, Pickens and Lamb, when Pickens was training for the NFL Combine in 2022, and CeeDee had been in the league for a couple years out in Atlanta. They have some trainer they both like working with. So there's a history of a relationship there, and both guys getting along extremely well. Pickens said he's really enjoying learning from Lamb, intermediate route running and some of the finer route running technique points. So everything so far with George Pickens is kumbaya here in OTAs.
And that's exactly what the Cowboys want to hear, at least in this early portion of the offseason before the season actually begins. As for the guys who cover those wide receivers, the cornerbacks, I'm curious how you feel about that position group as a whole. Of course, Trayvon Diggs leading the way, but we don't know his health and exactly how good he will be and ready to go by the time the season starts. Is this a position of concern for the Cowboys?
That's what I asked Brian Schottenheimer last week. I said, how do you feel about the cornerback position, given everything you just mentioned? And he said he feels good about them. I mean, that's, of course, what he's going to say at this point in the offseason program. He did say with both Revel and Diggs, who are dealing with knee injuries, they're kind of in wait-and-see mode with those guys. He didn't want to put a timetable on it, but Stephen Jones did tell us at the end of the draft that he expects both guys to be on the physically unable to perform list at the start of training camp. They expect Revel to come off of that at some point in camp, given he tore his ACL in the early fall of last year. Diggs, the timeline a little bit more murky, but the Cowboys did go out and exchange late-round picks to acquire Kyer Elam, who was the 2022 first-round pick of the Buffalo Bills, a cornerback there. So he comes over in the last year of his rookie contract, and Schottenheimer actually raved about Elam, saying he's shown up and has been one of the fastest guys on the team in terms of the GPS performance tracking numbers they have. I asked Elam about this at his locker after practice last week, and he said, yeah, I've been clocking 23.5 miles an hour, 23.6. I'm the fastest on the team. And he looked pretty smooth out there. He looked good, knocking away a couple passes, playing on the first team defense. What's interesting is he's more of an outside corner. Deron Bland, the All-Pro, led the NFL in interceptions in 2023. When he first got going in Dallas as a fifth-round pick in 2022, he was the nickelback fill-in for an injured Jordan Lewis, and then was an outside corner when he had his breakout 9 interception season in 2023. In OTAs here, they put Bland at times with first team defense back in the slot because they've got Elam, who's more of an outside guy, and then Kalen Carson, a fifth-round rookie from last year's draft class. He's kind of more outside. So it'll be interesting to see how they rotate and deploy Bland, especially with him coming up here in a contract year. But certainly they like what they've seen from Elam so far. Bland is healthy, and then Diggs, Revel, kind of wait and see until training camp to really reassess their status for the start of 2025.
Yeah, Elam, a guy coming out of college that had so much promise and still hasn't fully lived up to maybe all the expectations that we thought he would have when he left my Florida Gators. Let's talk one other cornerback potentially out there on the market, Jalen Ramsey. The Dolphins looking like maybe they would be willing to ship him off. Is this someone the Cowboys should maybe take a look at and try to get in and make a trade for?
It would make a lot of sense on paper, just purely from the on-field fit, given the injury question marks with Revel and Diggs. But Dallas kind of made their big swing of the offseason, trading multiple picks, including a third-round pick, to the Steelers to acquire George Pickens. And Schottenheimer maintains they like the cornerback group, and it's kind of more wait and see on the health status for Revel and Diggs until training camp. So if Dallas were to decide to get in this bidding process, probably wouldn't be till after training camp starts. Now, I don't know if the Miami Dolphins are looking to make a deal on him before training camp, but Dallas might slow play if there is any interest there trading for him. But I wouldn't expect anything imminent from the Cowboys side of things as far as Ramsey negotiations go, at least until training camp gets underway.
Hey, training camp will be here before we know it, though. And, of course, need to get to OTAs first before you get a little break, and then we really get down to the nitty-gritty of the entire football schedule. Garrett Podell, thank you so much for staying on top of everything when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And this is a Cowboys team that, when you talk about the longest active NFC championship game droughts, look who has the longest one with at least an appearance at one point. That is the Cowboys, 1995. Only drought that's longer in the AFC is the Browns in 89, Dolphins in 92. But it's been a lot of misery for Cowboys. They hope that maybe things can change up this year.